Welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing. All right, welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast. I've got Travis Huff on the line. Travis, how's it going today?
It's going wonderful, man. It's Friday. Besides the stock market, everything's going good.
Listen, man, I've watched some of your videos online and what you're up to, and it's going to be tough to match your level of energy on the show today. So bring it all on. We're interested. It is Friday. We want to have some fun, and who knows what day they're listening to the show, but we can always use an extra ounce of energy.
Absolutely. And folks, as an entrepreneur, I say every day is Friday because I run a social media agency, and literally that's the only way to look at it after working now almost coming up on 11 years, folks, on, working in a business, is that every day to me, I have to put on my Hawaiian shirt. I got to change my mindset because a lot of times I'm having to work every single day. So one of my key things that I say to myself is every day is Friday.
Well, if you're living for Fridays because you don't like what you're doing, then you're doing the wrong business. And it sounds like you're living for every single day, which is great.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you are running a successful business. I've read the stories in your background, and I would love to hear about where you came from and how you got to where you're at today. So if you don't mind, how about some background on you and where it all started for you? Were you a paper boy as a kid or selling candy bars?
I was. Absolutely, folks. So I've always been an entrepreneur, a paper boy. I had sold a lot of stuff out of my mom or my parents' garage, door to door, just going around selling pots and pans, and had a lemonade stand, did a lot of different things in business and entrepreneurship along my journey. A lot of times you don't think that you're really an entrepreneur. Obviously, at that time, it was just something I liked to do. I wasn't afraid to go talk to people, knock on doors. Over the progression of time, I worked in the car wash business, worked at Morgan Stanley, worked for the Fresno State Alumni Association, and got a lot of different aspects of sales and marketing. Also, my dad's an accountant. So what do you think he wanted to do, folks? He wanted to recruit me into his business. I was working there at least for I would do the tax season work. So I really understood taxes. But at some point when I got to my senior level college classes and I had to make a decision for my major, I decided, you know what, Dad, I really enjoy marketing and advertising better than accounting. Mm-hmm. Not that I, don't appreciate all the opportunities. And, sometimes that's a tough thing to do when you kind of have a family business that's set up for you to kind of take it over, is to go out on your own, And so, folks, I got a really blessed opportunity right out of college to work for the Walt Disney Company, working for ABC Television. And it was really, it was amazing because, I was going from a green thumb, didn't know very much. And then all of a sudden, within a few years, I really understood the advertising business, knew the language and lingo that the advertising agencies were talking to us. And at the end of the day, knew how to not only get people on the air and get them, running campaigns on broadcast, but also actually getting them some success. Now, finding, whether it was in the commercial, whether it was the times we ran, just trying to find out that success. And then, I really had seen it in the heyday. So I worked for Disney from 2005 to 2009. And in November of 2008, I'm sitting down with a buddy at Starbucks, and we're just talking about life. He's in commercial real estate, and things are going great, as you probably know, before the recession crashed and everything. But things are going great. Everything's going great. And he says to me, hey, people are going to need their Facebook pages managed. Mm-hmm. And folks, I literally just put together a PowerPoint and started running with this idea because I knew and I love digital. I love that you can show the analytics and show the actual campaign results, where I was having a hard time doing that with broadcast because it's still kind of just out there. And obviously, as you guys know, in broadcast, you don't know how many people are going to the bathroom, skipping the channel, et cetera. And so it just was that epiphany moment, folks. I think a lot of times I tell people that the best ideas happen when you're listening. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's not your idea, whether that's your wife, your friend, your partner, your baby, your kid, or maybe as a customer, you're just listening to your customer and all of a sudden they say, do something more for me. And I always just find that the best ideas happen to those that just didn't execute, you know? And so I literally, folks, just started putting together a crappy PowerPoint, started, figuring out what my messaging was going to be. And it was real simple. I'm going to help you manage your Facebook page. And now 11 years later, folks, if you can believe this, that's still our number one request is Facebook.
Yeah.
It's still the behemoth in the room. It owns Instagram. And so people are still trying to figure it out. Now there's been a lot of changes along the way, but still it is the number one request we get on an ongoing basis. And so it's funny that, you know, even though there's more platforms and things like that, it's still the same thing that he said to me 11 years ago still reigns true today. And at the end of the day, folks, it's a grind business. So it's not an easy business. I wouldn't necessarily have gone into this business in hindsight, knowing how much work and involvement and immediacy is involved in this business. But, you know, when you start something and it becomes successful, and then you have to kind of just run with it, roll with the punches and accept, you know, the kind of business it is. And now we're sitting here today, 2020. We're a completely different shop, and we got 27 different team members working for us, hundreds of clients that we're, you know, helping with their campaigns, and slowly growing too. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of my journey in a nutshell.
I want to touch on something that you said there a couple minutes ago, that you were sitting there having a coffee with your buddy, and he says, you know, somebody's going to have to manage these Facebook pages, and you went and ran with it. What did that exactly look like? Because I think it's so critical. I've started a few businesses based on similar types of conversation and just listening and then executing on it. But what did it look like for you in that space after you left Starbucks? What were your next steps?
Well, the next step was to put together some sort of PowerPoint that I could explain to customers, and I could print up and kind of walk them through what I imagined, you know, the business would be. Because I really still didn't know at that point. It was a crappy PowerPoint. I put together a logo on PowerPoint, so it was a crappy logo too. But the point is, I had something. You know, I think it was like 5 or 7 pages of just, hey, we were going to create the content, we're going to engage with the fans, we were going to run new promotions, and then that we'll be able to kind of report back to you on what has happened. And that was kind of the gist of it. The advertising side of Facebook hadn't really fully taken on. I mean, they were still in the infancy of even having an ad platform in general. They were just trying to get users. And I mean, there was ad platforms, but it was set up for people that are spending $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month. I think even at one point it was $50,000 a month. But then, as you guys know, over time now, they do have a self-service platform where you can spend $1 a day if you wanted to. And so the real thing, folks, in execution is just making it happen. So first I had the PowerPoint, and then the second was I got to talk to people. You know, I got to figure out people that maybe possibly need this service. Started actually our biggest customer in general, the vertical that we thrive the most with is advertising agencies and public relations firms, digital marketing companies. As they white label our services, we become part of their team. And then at the time, it was just me. I mean, I become part of their team, and then they can go out, and if they have a customer, one of the very first customers we got with our agency was an automotive group. And literally, it was like July of 2009, we got this client, and we still have the same client. The agency has a lot more other campaigns going with us, but the same auto group is still with us. And so I always look at that as a huge success, and that, you know, my dad always taught me, you know, don't overcharge a customer, charge them the right price, don't go back and nickel and dime them, and then the business will grow, you know, providing a good service and providing good value for them. And then, you know, they'll want to do more with you. And so, yeah, that was really it. It was like, I always truly believe this too, folks, is that if you can't get a check, you don't have a business. And so, shoot, my very first check, you know, that was the validation I needed, you know, and became the testimonial to then tell the next customer.
Let me ask you this. How did you decide what that was worth when you put together that first, as you said, crappy PowerPoint? You know a little bit about Facebook, but you're probably learning on a daily basis because it was changing on a daily basis. How did you establish a price line for that, and then have the nuts to go, okay, this is going to be X amount of dollars for me to do your Facebook page? Yes, absolutely. I think it was like $15 a day or something, and we kind of just broke it down to, and I was like, okay, it's $15 a day times 30. That's like a $450. I mean, that just felt kind of right. I want to say the contract was somewhere in between $400 and $450.
And a lot of times, to be transparent with you folks, our prices haven't changed too much from that. Some of the stuff we've become more efficient, so we can go a little lower. And then some stuff with the advertising and, depending on the client's campaign or the amount of other, if they want to go on Instagram or Twitter or Pinterest or, and so that has changed too. Really, it is still of how much time it's going to take to manage the campaign, how much time is going to take into the moderation, the content creation. The content creation is pretty set, but the thing that the unknown is moderating, like how many engagements is this brand going to have? And that's kind of the due diligence on us now, to look at the page, see the size of audience, and see where we can take it. Sometimes they're not necessarily doing everything that they should be doing right now. And so when we take over, we're going to be like, oh shit, well, we're going to get a lot more engagements than they are because we're going to be doing X, Y, and Z, as well as now spending some advertising so more people see it. And so that is the kind of unknown area, is the moderation time. But I would say in general, it's still the same thing. It's how much time is going to take on this campaign to create all the elements and execute them daily. And then how much does the client want to spend in advertising, which is the other side of our business. And obviously, as you know, I mean, you can run an ad on the Super Bowl for $5 million and there's a big bang there. So it's the same with social. You can spend $5 million on social. Now, I don't suggest everyone do that. I always say start small, prove that it works on a small budget, and then you can always scale up. But it's those two factors. It's time and advertising now. Back then, it was just time because the ad side wasn't there. And then I just put it out there and prayed to God, just like we do all the time, and just said, hey, man, please, let's bring in this pipeline. Let's bring this client.
Well, I think what you said, though, is also an important factor is, it's based on your time and attention on the project. You came up with a sound number. I mean, look, if it's $15, minimum wage is $15, and you're going to spend an hour on it, that's a fair wage, which makes a lot of sense to the client. I have a lot of people that I business coach, and they want to start something, not necessarily what you do, but a lot of things that are service-based like this. And like, well, how much do I charge? Where do I start? And I think that's a great little roadmap you just gave there for when you started this business. And, if you're doing a good job, people are going to come back and continue to pay it and feel good about it. And thanks for laying out that structure. Where did the business, how long did it take for that business to ramp up and really prove itself out to you? Like, wow, okay, we're doing something here that's worth doing.
Absolutely. Shit, it was scary, folks. I mean, in the beginning, we were just barely getting traction. I'd gone from a job where I was making $100,000 or so for the last 3 years. Now I knew that it was going to change. So those were kind of the glory years, but I had some money saved up. So I had about 3 to 6 months of some money saved up. I did have some retirement and some stocks. If I had to, I'd be willing to sell that. We got traction literally within the first few weeks as far as getting our first check. Within a month or two, that first agency client came in, the auto group. So we got our very first check was a home developer, Lennar Homes. It was the Central Valley division of Lennar Homes. And then the second was this auto group. And that was it for a while. We were lasting those two campaigns. We were doing those for a few months, and then I started just kind of reaching out slowly to more customers, getting myself in front of there. We took a little bit of the money that we had, that we've been making, and we started partnering up with a web developer that could help build us a website so that we could hopefully get business outside of just the local Central Valley area where we're here. We can touch clients here and locally, but I obviously knew, just like, most people maybe don't, but it's true, is that if you create a website and it has a specific, niche or topic, that people from freaking Baltimore, Maryland and Florida and the middle of the Midwest, and they'll find you. And all of a sudden, we were running little advertisements on Google and next thing you know, we're kind of picking up clients. I remember picking up a dealership when we were talking about Baltimore, Maryland. I mean, I think that was like one of the very furthest customers away from us. Mm-hmm. And it was like, dang, we got a customer with a Mercedes dealership in Baltimore. I mean, it was pretty nuts that someone would want us to manage it 3,000 miles away, and it was just kind of validation. Each one has been validation. But I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you that if we didn't have our agencies, we'd probably not be here. If we didn't have the partnerships, we don't have a sales staff, so we kind of really depend on them.